Hello and welcome to another YouTube, and today I'm going to be talking about how I created Confidently You and how I ended up specializing with coaching women who want to lose body fat whilst also improving their relationship with food and just their confidence in day-to-day life. And it's something that, if I'm completely honest, I almost fell into accidentally. So like going right back, I was never particularly sporty as a kid. I was actually quite an anxious kid. I ended up going to Great Ormond Street. They diagnosed me with chronic fatigue syndrome, but actually later down the line, I actually realized it was anxiety. I got diagnosed with anxiety by my GP. That's a whole nother video because that kind of talks about why I got interested in psychological flexibility as well. But anyway, long kind of story short, I ended up going to college and I actually did a BTEC in musical theatre. I know, it sounds a bit wild when you kind of look back. Probably something that people don't actually expect because I was actually a singer. I did it professionally for a few years. I actually did a bit of a Michael Bublé style tribute and sang a lot of jazz and that type of stuff as well. And it was only really when I was in kind of like college that I started getting interested in the gym. So I knew that a friend was training at the time and, you know, I went down to him to kind of like see him at the gym a few times, got a bit addicted to it. There was two PTs that used to work for as well that kind of took us under their wing. I think when they were bored on shift, they used to like to kind of like push us really hard and kind of train us, which is really helpful because after chatting to them, I actually kind of started to think, do you know what? I could actually see myself doing this as a career. And at the time I was more interested in, you know, where I was quite a skinny kid, getting bigger. I used to be called skinny and lanky and everything else like that. So I was really trying to bulk up. Again, like I said, I was never really into sport. So for me, it was my first kind of like introduction into kind of fitness. So I decided to end up doing a degree in kind of like personal training. And that happened out of chance as well. When I was just at home, a letter came through the door and basically the local university were trialing out a brand new foundation degree in personal training. And it was quite funny because when I actually applied for the course, Simon, I still remember now, like the guy that kind of like led the course, actually brought me in to double check I actually applied for the right one. He was kind of saying to me like, you know, you do realize your, you know, background's all in kind of music and singing and dancing, and I think he laughed when he saw ballet on my kind of like interview, and he was kind of like, are you sure you're actually applying for the right one? I was like, no, definitely, this is what I want to do. And it was quite tough because when I did start the course, like everyone else had like a sports science kind of background, and I still remember now like sitting in that first lecture and they brought over just a skeletal kind of system and you just had to label it. And everyone obviously where they'd done the college degree knew where every bone, every muscle was. And I just didn't, but I was absolutely kind of hooked. I think after that, like absolutely loved uni. So much so that when I finished the foundation, they did offer you to kind of like upgrade to a full honours. So I stayed on for an extra year, ended up getting my degree in health and fitness as well. And then after that, I managed to get a gym job. So I basically like each year with the uni, you did have to do work experience, and I managed to get a job in a gym, which is really cool. And I absolutely kind of loved it. And I spent like over 10 years in this leisure centre as a one-to-one PT. And at the time I was the only one really doing it kind of like full time. So that's what was great. It was quite a small gym. I mean, later down the line, they had a huge refurb, but it was a very small gym when I first started. No one else was really PTing. And that kind of gave me a bit of an in. And within about a year, I was fully booked with kind of clients. And I was very fortunate as well because my very first client, like Colin Smith, I still actually chat to him now. He wanted 6 a.m. in the morning, 5 days a week. So that used to be like, you know, it was a bit killer. I remember like not even realizing that time existed when I first started. But because I used to have him and then no one till the evening, I might have like a 6 a.m. client, then a 7 p.m. client. I'd only like, you know, train a few people. I used to actually sit in the CAF, which happened to be outside the Body Pump and Zumba studio. And just what happened over time is I got chatting to like, you know, women coming out, they're asking me what I was doing, how I worked there. And I just started picking up clients, which just kind of meant that over time, the majority of my client base was women. Like that's just kind of what it was. And it just kind of happened a little bit kind of like organically. And then I spent a lot of time kind of investing in education, mentors, I really did think I was going to be a physique coach. So that was kind of like what I really wanted to kind of do myself. So I did actually compete in men's physique myself. Funnily enough, because a lot of people told me that I didn't look like a PT, and I say a lot of people, there's a couple of people, but things like that stick. And I think part of me was like entering bodybuilding, like as you can kind of see from this kind of like photo here, thinking that, right, it would just suddenly get me more kind of like clients through the door, and it didn't, because a lot of people didn't care. If anything, people just thought I looked really unwell, which is kind of like funny. But yeah, I did that, helped a lot of people kind of like do the same. So I trained 2 girls for their first ever bikini shows. I did a few photo shoots, got some guys in some really kind of like incredible kind of conditions, and my results were like very, very good. You know, again, as you can kind of see here, it was like, yeah, that's what I thought I wanted to do. And then I guess when I looked back at my client base, I was like, I couldn't understand how a working mum of 3 couldn't meal prep every Sunday, and she clearly just didn't want it enough. That's what my brain said. Like, I probably turned me into a bit of a knob competing. And then over time, you know, as I kind of got older, got more experienced, and, you know, worked with more and more kind of people, I kind of came to realize that the issue wasn't really the nutrition or the training. And I just wanted to help like clients on a deeper level, particularly, as I said, like as a kid and obviously growing up in my 20s, I did really struggle with kind of like mental health myself. I had a few things happen within my kind of like family, which I won't kind of like go into. But I did really like kind of go downhill to the point that I was on kind of like medication. Things did get quite bad, which I won't go into kind of either in too much kind of detail. I do a little bit of that on my emails. So if you're ever on my email list, you might know a little bit more about the kind of like history. But like I said, I was always interested in kind of mental health in kind of general. And it was just something I ended up deciding that actually, do you know what? I'm going to go and do my master's degree in this. I nearly did it in nutrition originally. And I'm actually like so happy that I didn't, because I think it was so important. So I completed a master's degree focusing on disordered eating and body image. And then I went on to kind of study acceptance and commitment therapy. And again, as you know already, like I'm a massive fan of that, which I will talk more and more about in future videos, because it's really, really helping kind of like clients. But again, this is just a bit about background today, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. I guess kind of like into that. And then really, like, you know, long story short, like COVID hit, you know, it wiped out a lot of my one-to-one business. I did go and work for the NHS for a little bit. And then over time, I just kind of thought, do you know what? I'm going to try online, because with the one-to-one stuff, I just wasn't able to help people in a way that I wanted to help them. Coffee's life. But yeah, like I said, like I think with the PT stuff, like I was finding that, yeah, like you could get people in the gym for an hour, push them hard, get a sweat on, you know, they might be getting kind of like stronger, but I just wasn't getting the results with my clients that I kind of wanted to. And I just knew that in order to do that, that it was the psychological element that they needed kind of like that level of support for, because, you know, that gym hour is just such a small percentage of their overall day. And really, like on my kind of like coaching calls, the things that we kind of look at is things like breaking down previous belief systems, breaking down things that have internalized, overcoming experiential avoidance. So things such as like, again, guilt, shame, like, you know, mum guilt that people kind of get and everything else like that. You know, internalize things in terms of what they should and shouldn't be doing when it comes down to weight loss, because of previous history on like Slimming World and things their parents have kind of said to them that they've kind of internalized with. The perfectionism and the fact that they kind of like feel like they give up every time they can't be 100% kind of perfect. I think when it comes down to things like as in food diaries and things like that, like when people aren't accurate, it's normally because they just felt so much shame from actually kind of like admitting, because it's just a bit of an ego protection thing. Like we're all looking to protect our own kind of egos. And that's why I ended up creating kind of Confidently You, because I just wanted something that was so much more than just about the fat loss. Like that is such a small part of what I do as a business kind of overall, to the point that actually recently, you know, I sent like kind of like some questions out to my clients, and a few of them kind of said that actually life coaching is what they kind of saw it more as, because we go so much deeper than like other online coaches kind of like go into, where it's just that surface level. Here's your program, here's your nutrition plan. I want to help people in all areas of their life. So when I talk about like the ACT kind of frameworks that we kind of use and the psychological approaches that I kind of use, it's helped people in their relationships. It's helped people push themselves out of comfort zones. It's helped people build more balance in their life. It's helped people with guilt around kids and kind of feeling like their identity was the fact that they just felt like they were a mum, and they've lost their kind of identity within their relationship and what they kind of cared about, and they lost a little bit of kind of purpose. And then we have nutrition and training sprinkled on top, because of course, like, you know, eating well, getting stronger, like, you know, pushing past boundaries all helps with that as well. But I'm so proud of what I've kind of created over time with Confidently You, because it's just so much more. And that's why I wanted to do the masters, and it's why I will continue to develop down that psychological route with my own kind of development and training, because that's to me what real coaching kind of is. And it's a completely different job from one-to-one PT. I would kind of say that the two are completely different, which is why like not all online coaching is the same, because I think so many people now have just maybe set up one-to-one PT businesses and just moved them online. But for me, like, coaching it's asking the right questions, it's active listening, it's asking challenging questions. And it, you know, I know I keep repeating myself, but it's not the same kind of job. But hopefully that's given you like a little bit of an insight into how it's kind of come about, because I know it's just one of those questions that people ask me. They're just like, why did you work with women? And as I said, it's just something that's kind of happened organically. And it's also not kind of completely true. Like, I do have male clients as well. It's just kind of online. Obviously, I wanted to kind of like narrow down and like niche down a little bit more. But yeah, it's just something that's happened organically. And I'm really excited about where Confidently You is going to go in the future. So if you do want to obviously kind of find out a little bit more about one-to-one and what makes me different, then feel free to follow me on Instagram. It's the best place to kind of get to me. Send me a DM and we can kind of chat a little bit more.